All right.
Right,
Welcome to the Domestic
man.
Draft Podcast. I'm Evan Bierman here with Dan Sloak. He's finally back. Dan was in Italy for 2 weeks, Dan. So you missed the last couple episodes. So it's good to have you back, man. How you doing? And what do you got? What are you sipping on over there?
I'm slowly getting like reacclimated. My brain has been mush since coming back. It's been a little bit of a different kind of transition here. I'm drinking a lager though from Second Chance Brewery here in San Diego. It's really good and it's for a really good cause. But a little bit about the brewery and then about the beer and the cause. They were founded in 2015 here in San Diego by Marty and Curtis. In Virginia. They're San Diego based, and they started kind of brewing up some beer around 2015. They got their brewery out in Carmel Mountain, which is kind of like a north, we call it like the north side of San Diego. And they have a tasting room in North Park as well, a neighborhood I used to live in here that's kind of central to a lot of like the trendier neighborhoods here in San Diego. But about the beer is called Buddy. It's got a dog on it, and it's just an easy crushable lager, as they call it. And they do a lot of giving back, a lot of charitable work for dogs. They claim to be like the first like dog first brewery, to where they really rescue as many dogs as possible. So in the spirit of giving back, they donate portions of all proceeds to local dog rescues such as the Animal Pad, the Second Chance Rescue, and they're both nonprofits dedicated to saving homeless dogs and giving them a second chance. So saw it, good cause, thought I'd bring it up on the show, and good beer. What about you, man?
Nice. So I'm doing Lagunitas Brewing Company. We've talked about them on the show before. They're based out of Petaluma, California, and Chicago, Illinois. Lagunitas began brewing on a kitchen stove in Northern California in 1993 and have been crafting hop forward beers ever since. In 2014, they found their second home here in the Pilsen neighborhood of Chicago. And fast forward to today, they're continuing to push the boundaries. Actually, it's what I have here isn't a beer; it's a tea. It's called Disorderly Tea House. It's a yuzu lemon squeeze. It's spiked and sparkling guayusa tea. It's 5%, gets a 3.39 on Untappd. So not a great Untappd score. I think it's a little different. Not something that you see every day, but it's kind of a refreshing spin on the classic iced tea with lemon combo. It's got a little subtle hint of tart yuzu citrus in there. And the guayusa leaves they use are all natural, sourced from indigenous Ecuadorian farmers. They are then brewed 100% naturally, hand harvested guayusa leaves for a smooth herbal and earthy tea with just a hint of sweetness. It's got a little bit of caffeine in there, so
not
it gets
quite
you
a
going.
Mike's Hard Lemonade or what?
No, it's more, yeah, it's more like Arnold Palmer. Gives you that kind of vibe. So it's pretty good though. I mean, 3.39 is a little bit low, but not something that I'm going to sip all day with all the caffeine in there. But it's solid. And speaking of smooth and solid in Chicago, we got our guy Herb Howard coming on. He's at Herb Howard 411 on Twitter. He's a Chicago Bears beat reporter for the Bigs Media, co-host of the I Said What I Said podcast, and radio personality at WVON on iHeartRadio. Herb, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Man, Evan, Dan, what's going on? Appreciate y'all having me.
Awesome.
Yeah,
thanks for being here, man. So we're curious, just we always like to see kind of how our guests got to where they are today. What made you get into sports radio, sports media? How'd this career journey all get started?
I honestly think it all chose me, man. I can remember being like a kid, like hosting like assemblies in like grammar school, and like kept, going through that through high school. Football was always my first love. It was the very first thing that I was just drawn to. I can remember like being a kid, and I would sit down. This when the NFL draft would come on Saturdays, and it would come on Saturday mornings, and I would sit down with my pen and pad, just write down every single pick, every player, what school they came from, what position they played, who drafted them, those kinds of things. I'm sure if I look for it, I can still find that notepad with all those years of draft in it. And so I think that was just something I kind of always loved. And when I got to college, I started to do radio. And then upon me, coming back to Chicago, I got into talk radio at WVON. And I was doing like kind of like freelancing on the sports broadcast, sports journalism stuff, right? And I was just always doing the Bears. And during the pandemic season in 2020, hooked up with the Bigs. They had been doing great work for a while, covering pro sports here in Chicago. And we started to do a pregame show that we called the Kickoff Kickback. And we would just kind of sit right about 10 right to kick off, and we would just talk about the games all around the league, talk about the Bears, have a beer like you guys do. And from there, they were like, hey, what would you think about, covering the Bears for us in 21? And I was like, don't mention that to me if y'all not serious, right? That's something that's always been like a dream of mine. And so it was like, nah, we really love how you deliver it, how you talk about it, your knowledge of the game. And so last year was my first year on the beat. Kind of got my feet wet there, kind of got used to, what the work was, what it looked like, getting inside of Hallis Hall and talking to the players. And now this year, just trying to expand on that, do a little bit more things in terms of writing and radio and TV and all those types of things. And so it's been going really, really good. I'm enjoying it.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what's it like being on the beat? I guess is it a lot of traveling? Is it a lot of like late nights? Is it I'm all day at practice and then I'm up, writing all night? I mean, can you give us a day in the life of a beat reporter?
Yeah, for sure. It varies depending on what part of the season that we're in, right? And so the springtime is a little bit more regimented and just a little bit light as they go through organized team activities. OTAs are a little bit different. You may get up to Hallis Hall, once or twice a week or something like that. And training camp comes and it's like every single day. And you kind of are at the mercy of the Bears at that point, right? And what time are they going to practice today? And who's going to talk to the media? What time are they going to do these press conferences? And so you could be up there from 8 till 4, 5, 6 o'clock. I think I've been up there as late as like 8 o'clock. And so it depends, during training camp. And then once the season starts, it's kind of regimented again. They try to keep a consistent schedule throughout the week, mostly for the players. And so it kind of works that way for us too. But it is very, very busy. It's a lot that goes into it in terms of being up there for practices. And then you'll be up there for a practice. And then you got to be there later for the press conference. But you can't necessarily watch all of practice. They'll open up some of practice for us, all right? So we can kind of watch maybe the first 20 or 30 minutes of practice. And then they're like, okay, we got to put in our real game plan. So y'all got to get out of here. And now you kind of got to go back, sit around and wait for them to come back and do press conferences and things like that, which is the time that you can go ahead and write your columns and things like that. But you're going to want those quotes from the press conference in your column too. So you kind of got to wait around for that. The traveling is like, as you would expect, when they're on the road, we're on the road, and, you got to try and get back. I mean, we're not on private jets like they are. We don't fly with the team, right? The beat reporters don't fly with the team. And so, we book our own commercial flights and things like that. Right. Yeah. And so, whereas they leave the stadium, police escort to the airport, private jet, get back to Chicago as quick as possible. We're trying to make sure that we can get back in the morning for the morning press conference, because the head coach is going to speak the morning after the game. So that Monday morning, you want to make sure you get back. And that can be tough, if it's a West Coast trip or things like that. So the travel can definitely be a bit challenging. Just trying to get all the logistics taken care of, get your crew, your cameramen all set up, and, get to the stadium and those types of things. But those are all, minor inconveniences to do something that I really, really enjoy. I really, really like, just to be around the game and to talk sports with the coaches, and interview with the players, and just to go around and be in so many NFL stadiums is really super dope to me. So those things are minor inconveniences.
Yeah. And I think, but from reading your stuff, you kind of see that you have a unique voice, a unique perspective. I'm curious if your history of coaching football has anything to do with kind of how you're able to disseminate the information or write about what you're seeing going on, maybe behind closed doors, in the locker room, or things like that, since you've been a part of it before.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it definitely kind of lends me some credibility in a way to kind of discuss the game with the players and coaches in a language that they understand. Football can have its own language sometimes, and even just as a reporter, as a journalist or a writer, you study the game and you're like aware of the game, but then there's a different kind of language that you're able to speak it to when you've coached it or played it. And I think coaches and players readily identify, they recognize it as soon as they hear it, and then they become just a little bit more engaged with you. They give you a little bit of a different answer. They can speak to you in a different way because they think you understand exactly what they're saying. Today, we have the opportunity to speak to defensive assistants, which we don't speak to often. We'll speak to head coach very often. We'll speak to coordinators a little bit less frequently, but the assistants not so much in terms of the position coaches. And just having the opportunity to kind of sit down one-on-one and talk to them was really, really cool. And I think that was another opportunity just talk ball. And when you get to talking ball, they understand, hey, we speak the same language here. And so it kind of creates an avenue to open up some different lanes where, you get answers that you may not otherwise receive.
Right.
Nice. You have a favorite event that you've covered, or like a favorite game, something that sticks out just being on the beat, the past couple of years?
Yeah. I last year up at Lambeau, man, after the game down the field, after I got done my work and press conference and, did my post-game video recaps and all of that, had an opportunity to take a few cracks at the Lambeau League, man.
Oh, really?
Successfully?
define successful. You know,
Is it taller than you think it is? It's pretty tall.
It is significantly taller than you think it is, and it probably took me about 4 or 5 times to get up there. Like, to be honest with you, and you know, trying to do it after you've been sitting down in the press box for 3 hours, like those guys, number one, they're world class athletes, which I'm not, never have been, never will be. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, they are stretched, warm, and their adrenaline is pumping. They just scored a touchdown. Number three, the fans are like, please come up here. So they like grabbing them up there. Nobody's grabbing me. I'm stiff. I'm old. I'm fat. And I'm tired. And it took me a long time to get up there. But I was determined. So I ultimately made it up there in about 4 or 5 tries. But it was a cool thing. It was a bucket list type thing to be able to go up there and Lambeau Leap. So that was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't go for it.
Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
I'm just curious about, I've never been up to Lambeau Field and the difference and dichotomy between like a stadium like Soldiers, like in the, you know, in the city limits, and then Lambeau, which is like in the suburbs, right? Or like there's houses right outside.
Yeah.
And you travel all around. Do you have a favorite maybe stadium that you've been to, or how does, since there's a lot of news about the Bears possibly moving, how does Soldiers Field compare to some of those stadiums? Do you think it needs to be moved to Arlington Heights so they could update it and compete?
Well, I would say so. Well, I was gonna say I really like Heinz Field. Heinz Field in Pittsburgh is really nice. I like where it sits. It looks super nice. The colors, all that, super dope. But then we also the Bears opened up last season against the Rams in SoFi. That thing is ridiculous,
Nuts.
like palatial. Yeah. Like that thing was crazy. Like walking on the field down there, they've got, you know, they got suites on the field level. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just super dope. The Bears also played the Raiders. They just opened up the Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. That thing also ridiculous. Looks like a spaceship or something like that. Like it was. So those two stadiums were by far the most impressive. I really enjoyed Heinz. As far as Soldier Field, I'm biased. I think Soldier Field, I think the Bears should play right on the lakefront with the skyline in the backdrop and all those types of things. That being said, there are some logistical challenges with it, right? I mean, the Park District owns it, right? And so all year long, all these different events are going on through there. You got soccer, you got concerts, all these things that are making the surface itself just terrible to play on, number one. Number two, it's really hard to get in and out of Soldier Field. You're sitting right there off Lakeshore Drive. You got Lake Michigan to the other side of it. There's pretty much one way in, one way out. And getting in and out can be a logistical nightmare. And then you think about the business side of it, right? First of all, I think it's still the smallest seating capacity in the National Football League. I think it seats like 64,000. And I think the Bears would certainly love to have a stadium where they can put more people in it, but also a stadium where they can do many other things. And so if they can get out to Arlington, they can have a dome stadium. You can have the Big Ten championship. You can have NCAA games there. Those types of things that will become possibilities for them if they go out there. And so if I had to bet on it, I would say they are going to go. Again, you know, kind of selfishly, I would always like to see the Bears right there. I know the city came with a proposal for a stadium that they can put a roof on right where it sits. Yeah. We'll have to see. I think everybody understood the first time they remodeled it that they messed it up. Like, you got an opportunity to
spaceship
to redo this. Yeah, you should have just redid it the right way. They didn't do it, and now here we are. So if I had to bet on it, I would say they're going to Arlington, but they may just be kind of trying to use that as leverage against the city of Chicago from pony up. We'll see.
And it's not the worst stadium you've been to?
No, not the stadium itself. I think Soldier Field has nice sight lines. I don't think there's a bad seat in Soldier Field. There are some other things about it that I think would be terrible, like the food, right? The food.
Man,
the food.
Have you ever sat up at the top row though, hiking up 35 steps up there, and it's like, I got to go to the bathroom.
It feels like you can fall off and die from up there too.
Yeah.
But it doesn't give you a bad view of the game, but it does.
Right.
It is high. It's very steep, and it feels like you can fall over onto Lakeshore Drive.
You're just getting blasted by the lakefront too.
Oh, not cool. But yeah, all the stadiums they see, like in the press box, they give you food, and around the country, the food has been phenomenal. Anything you think of, like stuff they had, like people cooking live in front of your face, like cook to order type stuff, or they had good food out. In Soldier Field, it's like, here, take this hot dog, take this fried chicken sandwich, and shut up. Like, and so they can definitely do better on that. Yeah, and George McCaskey actually asked one of the beat writers down at the owners meeting this year, hey, how's the food in the press box store? Just feels like, really? You know what y'all give us? Stop playing, man. And you also go to the other stadiums, so you know how it compares. But they're I'm Chicago, born and raised, man. So I'm always gonna be biased to it, but just being honest and objective about it. There are some things that Soldier Field leaves to be desired for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into this year's
Yeah, I want
Bears
to
team. Sound good, Evan?
talk some Bears and get your opinion on some of these hot topics here. First thing we got to ask you about is the Roquan Smith contract discussions. How do you think that all went down, or how do you know all that went down? And where do you think it goes from here?
Yeah, I was one of the people who thought, early in that kind of dispute that it had the potential to go longer than most people thought it would. People thought it would kind of get done and take care of itself. I didn't see it that way. Just kind of observing where both parties were, understanding who Roquan Smith is. He's a man that stands on his principles, right or wrong. If he believes it, he's going to stand on it. We saw him do that in his rookie year. He was the number 8 pick in that draft, but he was the very last person in that draft class to sign his rookie contract. Held out for 29 days then. We've seen him stand on his principles before, and I knew that he would do that again. But I also understood that Ryan Poles, as a first-year GM, first-time GM, did not want to set the precedent for caving into player demands and contract negotiations. And so for me, all those things kind of just created this perfect storm for this thing to kind of drag out, and that's certainly what it did. And you look at kind of how the process played out. I think Roquan Smith didn't quite understand the leverage issue, right? He understood, hey, I'm a great player. I've been a model, player and captain and citizen. I've done everything you guys asked me to do. I put my heart, sweat, and soul into this franchise for the 4 years that I've been here. You guys should reward me for that. He's not wrong about that. I would pay him, right? But it's not personal. It's business. And the business says, we don't got to pay you. First of all, you're under contract for 9.7 this year. Second of all, we can franchise tag you next year if we want to. But also, he doesn't have the leverage from the perspective of where this Bears team is organizationally right now. This is not a team that has legitimate Super Bowl aspirations for this season. If that were the case, he may have more leverage. Say, hey, I'm the best player on this defense. He's probably the best. He's the best player on their team right now, right?
Yeah.
And so he would have had more leverage if they were looking to win a Super Bowl this year. You think about what Darrelle Revis did to the Jets some years back when he was holding out. Well, that Jets team, Rex Ryan thought that was the team that had the potential to win a Super Bowl if they had their lockdown corner over there. And so he kind of held them hostage. Y'all want to win a Super Bowl? You gotta pay me.
Need it.
That's not the situation that Roquan Smith is in. This is a rebuilding franchise. They're looking to win, next year, 2, 3 years from now. Not so much this year. Ryan Poles is the first-time GM. Flus is the first-time head coach. They've got nothing but job security. And quite frankly, the needle doesn't move very much whether Roquan Smith is there or not this year, right? There's a ceiling on what this team can do, whether he plays there or not this year. And I think Ryan Poles understood that. And because of that, there just wasn't a whole lot of leverage for Roquan. I don't think he understood that part of it.
Yeah,
that's a great point.
Yeah, totally breaking down. Great points, great info there. Rebuilding. I want to talk about the offensive line because I think that's always a point of contention and conversation for the Chicago Bears. It seems like they're doing a youth movement. I think Larry was assigned a starter. Tevin Jenkins has been getting reps at the 1. Specifically with Tevin Jenkins, was that whole trade demand or putting him on the trade block, was that like a front office ploy, a motivation to try to get him back out on the field and put on some tape and maybe show him that he is the talent that was drafted? What was going on?
I don't know. It's been a very, very interesting thing. He's only going to his second year and he's gone through a lot already. They drafted him to be a bookend left tackle specifically for the next decade. And I think that's what he kind of thought. That's what he kind of expected. He comes in, he's got the back. He misses most of his rookie season, doesn't come in till, I think, week 13. He finally plays, gets his first start, week 15. And then he comes into this season, whole new regime, new GM, new coach, and they don't love him as much. I didn't draft you, and I'm not married to you in that way. And so he comes in here, and they take 4 offensive linemen in the draft, and then they sign a bunch more as undrafted free agents. He gets to OTAs in the spring, and the 5th-round pick from Southern Utah, Braxton Jones, is quickly running with the 1s, and now he's relegated to the 2s. And that had to be messing with his mind. It just had to be. And so he's got to deal with that. And then right before training camp, they bring in a 10-year veteran in Riley Reid, give him $10 million, seemingly pushing Tevin Jenkins even further down the depth chart. And then at that point, I was like, I don't know if he is going to be on this 2022 roster, because we had been asking all spring, did they think he could kick inside? And none of the coaches ever gave us any indication that that was a part of the plan. They were like, probably not, right? And so at that point, you talk about starting tackles being Riley Reef, Larry Borom, Braxton Jones. One of them is going to be the swing tackle, right? That kind of leaves Tevin as the odd man out. And then he gets hurt and he's gone for like 10 days. We don't see him at all. He's not on the field with the rest of the injured players. We don't see him. So we don't understand what's going on. Are they trying to trade him? Is he disgruntled and not showing up? Like, what's going on? And then he comes back, and to his credit, I think he's handled this very, very well. I think he's handled it. He's been very mature about it. You've asked him about the, seeming demotions, and he's like, listen, I've got to get better. And then an opportunity pops up at right guard for him. And he's kind of taking that spot and taking that opportunity, and he seems to be running with it. It's a new situation for sure. We talked to Cody White here, and he says, listen, it's a transition to go from outside to inside. Everything just happens a lot quicker on the inside, and so you got to learn to use your hands a little faster, combination with your feet, and so those types of things. But I think he's doing a good job with it, and I think that he's, slated to be the starting right guard for the Bears, and I think that's his job to lose for now. I mean, they brought in Michael Schofield, but I think Tevin Jenkins has the upper hand right now. And we see the same things with Braxton Jones. I think if you have a close competition between young guys and veterans,